Hello, lovelies. How are you? I hope you're all doing well. It is summer here in the Pacific Northwest, kind of finally, but yes. This is the second part of me doing a 1950s does Victorian suit, and in this one I am doing the jacket to match last week's skirt. This is done with, the exterior is a navy blue, probably poly wool. It's a wool blend. I'm pretty sure it's not full wool, but it's a wool blend. And I did thrift this fabric. It is a 60-inch wide, and there's about 2 yards of it. I really like how this turned out. I used this pattern, which is Simplicity's 8747, and it's a princess themed peplum back jacket. It could be done as a blouse, but I chose to fully line this so that I would have, well, a fully lined jacket so I could wear it during the winter. This is kind of a nicer style. I wouldn't exactly call this evening attire, but I would say that this is a nicer finish as opposed to some of my other jackets that I've done. I used silver buttons down the front. They've got little Celtic knots on them. And 6 silver buttons. I did use a grosgrain ribbon around the waist to give it a waist tape so that it does not warp out of shape, because it does have a giant peplum in the back. Well, not giant, but it's my first peplum, and I like how it turned out, and I kind of want to keep it that way. I did do the long sleeve option. It does have a turned back collar that you use French tacks to hold in place. If I'd had a little more of the black watch taffeta left, I would have done cuffs that were the black watch, so that you had a little bit of contrast cuff on the outside. However, I did not. It's like I used every scrap I had, and I managed to fully line the bodice, and then I used some polyester lining for the sleeves because you can't really see them. And I just made a collar out of the regular, well, the plain wool. So I like how it turned out. You will see it at the end of the video. It's very lovely, and it is a little big on me, I will say that, but I did that on purpose because I know I will be wearing layers underneath. I will be wearing a camisole and a shirt at least on the upper half, if not other layers, because I get cold during the winter. And this is designed to be like a fall winter nicer style of skirt jacket combination. I will probably try later on to make a couple of plain blouses to go with it. Probably one out of poly satin with a bow, or maybe something like that. Something a little bit nicer, so I could wear this like out to a dinner or to meet teachers. But I probably also will try to make one out of just a plain cotton, so that it is more everyday, because the skirt itself is just like a poly tartan. So it would work with a white cotton, it would work with blue, green, or black. So I rather enjoy this ensemble. I hope you enjoy it, and please let me know what you think down below. Alright, so this is a princess-themed blue wool jacket that is fully lined in the poly taffeta. Originally, this was like a blouse jacket. It wasn't lined at all. It just had a facing around the bottom and around the front and the neckline. However, I wanted it to be a jacket as opposed to a blouse style, so I lined it. And how I did that was just double cutting the exterior pieces and then interfacing the hem as well as the neckline and the front. I did do a bound buttonhole. If I'd thought about it earlier, I would have done a bound buttonhole that allowed me to have a front facing in this blue material, but I didn't think about that until I was already, cutting the taffeta to do the inside of the bound buttonhole. So at that point, I just went, whatever. I like how it turned out. I wasn't trying to pattern match this, I was just trying to cut it because I wanted the inside of the jacket to match the skirt to go with it, but it is also a blue jacket so that I can wear it whenever. I did line the sleeves in just a regular lining material in blue because I did not have enough of the taffeta to be able to do the sleeves. Like I said, I was just trying to get the body of it so that it would relatively match the skirt if I wanted it to. If I had any extra, it would have gone towards doing the underside of the collar as well as the turned out cuffs. But here I am just prepping the front pieces to do this. If I'd thought about it, I probably would have done a smaller size because this did turn out rather big on me. However, I will be wearing this during the winter quite a bit. It is a wool jacket. Once it starts getting colder, and when it's not raining, but just kind of like, windy out, I will probably be wearing this jacket a lot. A lot of my current outfits have a lot of blue in them, and this jacket's relatively warm and relatively comfortable. That was me doing the front. Now the front and the back pieces have been generally assembled. Here I am getting ready to sew up the back of the jacket. And as you can see, it kind of has a ridiculously sized peplum in the back. I do kind of love it though. So yeah, I have no complaints about that. I did end up hand stitching in a waist tape before I did the lining so that A, it's hidden in the jacket and will be less likely to wear out, and B, because it gives a little stability to the waistline that the lining doesn't need. I do like using these longer quilting pins because A, they're thinner so they can go under the needle with less likely of being hit, but B, they're also thinner, therefore they leave less of a noticeable mark when you use them to pin the seams like this. Here I am just sewing up the side seams as well as the shoulder seams, so then I can go through and sew up the collar, which you can see here I'm doing, but also the sleeves. But here I start with by matching up those front notches that will end up going onto the collar, and then I stabilize each of the corner pieces, and then I go through and pin all along the edge of the collar. And again, I'm just doing this in a wool blend because I did not have enough of the taffeta to make it a front collar. But altogether, I do like this. And I do like how it turned out. So, here I am getting ready to put in the stay tapes. So one of the things that I changed about how I did this pattern was I did not immediately put in the sleeves. What I did was I saved that until after I'd attached the lining so that I could use those holes to pull the lining through, which made it easier to understitch the lining to the seam allowance. I then could pull it through the armholes and not have to hand stitch up one of those edges. Bag lining may not be everyone's favorite, but I rather enjoy it and it gets the job done. And once that is done, then I can assemble the collar. Really, I just did this to give myself some more practice on doing bound buttonholes because I'm getting ready to do a fair project where I am making a dress suit. It's a dress with a jacket and it's a matching ensemble, so therefore it is a suit. So I am adding this little bit of practice before I do that, so that if my skills have gotten rusty since the beginning of the year, I can at least have a little bit more practice before making a fair ensemble. Because the fair, when you're doing fair work, you're doing your best work because it's like a competition. You may only be competing with yourself and your expectations, but it's a competition. So there I just attached the collar, and here I assembled the lining as I did the jacket itself, and then I fused interfacing to the front as well as the back, and then I sewed them together. So I assembled the front lining, assembled the back lining, and then I fused interfacing to the front as well as the back so that everything would line up and, you know, stay where it's supposed to. By fusing the interface into this, it does help the peplum to stick out, as well as everything to stay in relative shape. I then matched up the seams and, pushed everything back into place. And then I sewed up everything as well as I could. So in the original pattern, the interfacing would have just been a facing, as opposed to what I did, which is fully line it and then bag it out. Personally, I like the way this jacket turned out. I may try to do this as a blouse style at some point, but I like having fully interfaced jackets, so if they're going to be a jacket, I'm going to fully interface them because that's just how I roll. Well, not fully interface, but I mean fully line them. Because I like to have that security of all the seams are covered and done. You don't have any quote-unquote raw seams on the inside. While I understand Victorians may have had raw seams, they don't have washing machines. Or when they did, it was mostly still hand-washed. So, yes, once this is all sewn, I will then understitch it to make sure the lining doesn't come out at any point. So the only time you will see the lining is when I'm either taking my jacket on or off, or when I purposely show you. Well, after I've finished it, because right now you can see it. Once I've got this assembled, I will then sew a 1/4 of an inch away from the seam allowance, from the edge, and on the sleeve holes to keep that all in place. And then I will work on the sleeves. So the exterior of the sleeve is 2 parts as well as the interior. And the interior sleeve, I did just use just poly lining in blue. It's not like, it's like a medium blue. It's not like a royal blue or a navy blue, just a blue. It's just kind of blue. That's it. I got it for a different project, but I only ended up using like enough to make a couple pockets. So I just took the rest of it and used it to make the sleeves. And the sleeve does have a little bit of gathering at the top of the sleeve to help ease it in. Sorry, I don't know really what to say. The lining took longer than I expected it to, but I was also trying to be rather diligent about making sure it all lined up relatively well. So yes, once all that is sewn and in place, you stitch up the sleeves so that it doesn't unravel too much on you, and then you can work on the sleeves. So gathering at the top, um, I think, oh yes, this had a little like slit opening that I was having to figure out because it had a dart that went into the slit, but I liked how that's set up because that way the dart allowed you to not have too much darting at the elbow. Instead, it just had like a little bit of ease built in, and most of that just kind of disappeared once it was pressed because this was a wool blend, and when you press wool, it kind of shrinks, which is why wool tends to be dry cleanable. So I just took my pencil and I marked where I need to put the easing stitches so that everything can be eased in. And then I took my ruler and marked where the dart had to go. So therefore I could do all the ease stitching and the dart in one go, as opposed to fighting with one or the other. So I think I went and eased in those 2 points right before I did the dart for the sleeve. So here I'm just matching up everything so that it sits relatively well. I was just using a jar lid to hold the long pins so I wouldn't have to keep digging around in them for them because I've got other pins in my pin dish for other parts of the project. So here I am just getting ready to sew up the arm seam so that it'll lay nicely, and then I will do the lining as well in the same manner, and then the cuff will be done as the cuff is instructed, and then I will whip stitch the cuff to the lining so it doesn't show on the outside, and then I will also put French tacks in the cuff so that it doesn't fold out too much, which is basically you sew a loop from the sleeve fabric to the cuff, and then you blanket stitch around the length that you're given. This allows it to have some flexibility and to stick out somewhat, but it does not allow it to just kind of go where it pleases. It stays in the general vicinity of the sleeve, which, you know, is kind of nice. Once the sleeves are assembled, which as you can see I'm getting ready to put the sleeve lining to the sleeve, and then I will baste around the cuff of the sleeve but not the top of the sleeve because I want to leave the top of the sleeve for when I attach it to the jacket. Therefore because the lining will then attach to the seam allowance from the exterior fabric without, you know, being too much of a pain in the ass. So here I am just getting ready to baste the cuff of the sleeve together, so therefore it won't warp too much. And then I can attach the turnout part of the cuff so that everything will lay nicely and generally behave. This was a different style of sleeve than I usually do, and I rather enjoy it, so I may end up snagging this part of the pattern to make myself like a nice white blouse, button-down blouse, with, you know, a slightly different style color. Well, maybe I'll just steal a whole top pattern and make myself a nice white blouse to go with this. I have to admit, I do like the rounded collar and the rounded cuffs. It's a little bit nicer than the 40s pointy stuff. So here I'm just putting right sides to right sides. Again, if I thought about it ahead of time, I would have tried to scrounge up enough of the poly taffeta to do the exterior part of the cuff, which is what I'm attaching now in the black watch to match the inside, but I did not have enough, so I just did it in the blue. And I think it'll turn out relatively nice. And this is just like a Bemberg style lining that's just made with poly instead of rayon. I just picked it up from Goodwill because a yard was more than enough to do these sleeves. I still need to pick up a yard of black to redo the sleeves to give my sleeves in my coat a slick finish so that it's a little bit easier to get on and off without sacrificing the warmth of the quilted material. I am then, as you see, pushing the lining of the sleeve down inside the sleeve so that it doesn't pop out while I am assembling the sleeve to the jacket. Once that is sewn together, I will then turn the seam allowance for the lining of the sleeve in on itself so that it's pointed towards the rest of the raw edges, and I will slip stitch or whip stitch down all of that so that this raw edge is inside the sleeve and won't pop out. I have found this a very good technique when you're hand stitching in lining. It makes it a lot easier to do and a lot easier to deal with. I do have found that I like to also mark out all my seam allowances in either thread or in like chalk, because I found it easier when hand stitching to know where the seam is supposed to be, which is easier in vintage patterns when it's only ½ inch instead of 5/8. It is what it is. Once this is done and the hand sewing is finished, then I will be done. The jacket will be done. This took me probably 3 or 4 days, but that's with filming, so you could probably do it in 2 days. The skirt was a day project, like 1 day, and it was done. So here is the skirt, as you saw from my last video. It turned out very nice. It has one pocket and a zipper on one side, as well as the funny godets in the back that make it look sort of Victorian. However, this jacket is what kind of pushes it over to the edge. Over the edge, anyway. And here is the jacket. It is a dark, like navy blue, dual blend. I used silver Celtic buttons, and it's got a giant peplum in the back. And yes, I was filming this on a rather breezy day. And the nice thing about the length of the skirt is it doesn't flip up all that much. It just kind of pushes. So here is the funny little jacket. I don't like it buttoned all the way up. I've never liked my jackets buttoned all the way up. So it gives you probably about 2 inches. So here is the material on the inside. Poly taffeta lines up rather well, and I am rather pleased with it. It does make me feel rather Victorian.